Hello, amazing moss flutists. I hope everybody's doing well. This is the second instructional video that I thought I would do for you all, centering in on the counting of the Region 24 flute lyrical etude, which is really by a composer named Ferling. And we talked a little bit about Ferling and who he was and what his instrument was, which was oboe, and where this particular piece comes from in the last video. If you didn't get that video, you're more than welcome to contact Miss Lewis or myself, and I'd be happy to send you the link for that. One of the challenges of this particular work is the time signature as it relates to the tempo. So the tempo is a largo lagrimoso. Lagrimoso is mournful or tearful, sad, essentially. And if you notice on the tempo marking, which is, in my opinion, just a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow. I usually say between 74 and 80 is a good tempo marking for this particular work. It's slow, but the 70 tempo marking tends to make it very, very difficult, and in some cases almost impossible to make it through some of the phrases in one breath. So basically what the tempo is telling us, and I'm just going to use 76 for now, is that the 76, the marking on the metronome, which is that marking, that's what it sounds like, is equal to an eighth note, not to the quarter note that we have a tendency of getting accustomed to playing. So we call this, in our world, subdivision, or something that's subdivided, essentially. So we're taking each of the beats, and what you're accustomed to is normally the quarter note would be equal to one beat. Now the quarter note is equal to two beats. Eighth note in 4/4 or 3/4 or 2/4 tends to be equal to half of a beat, and now it's equal to one beat. So essentially, in this particular case, instead of being in 3, which is what the time signature looks like, it's actually going to be played in 6. So if I were to use a chart, eighth notes, and we just talked about this, are worth 1 beat. Quarter notes are worth 2 beats. Dotted quarter notes are worth 3 beats. Half notes are worth 4 beats. Dotted half note is worth 6 beats. And if we break that down just a little bit more, that means that 2 16th notes are equal to 1 beat. 4 32nd notes, such as in what is in measure 7, that entire combination is worth 1 beat as well. You also have some triplet areas in here. I'll put this in red. So the first triplet area is in measure 12, and we'll go into the counting briefly. You also have a set of triplets. It's got a 6 underneath because in this particular case he's using the phrase marking of 6 tuplets, but they're really split into two sets of triplets. So that means, and I'll keep it in red because it's kind of a special thing, that means that a combination of triplets is going to be equal to 1 beat, and those are 16th note triplets. One more rhythmic indication, and this is in measure 5, measure 6, also in measure 2 actually, measure 8, measure 10, a single dotted eighth note. That's not going to be worth 1 1/2. So essentially everything is double what you're accustomed to playing if you were in a 4/4, 3/4, or 2/4, any time signature that would have a 4 down at the bottom. So if you're in the habit of clapping and counting, or clapping or just counting, you can utilize that particular tool to clap out some of these rhythms. Number 7 is a little bit harder to clap out just because there's so many notes, but it can be done. So I have my metronome set at 76 for now, and I'm going to clap and count the very first full phrase. So I'm going to take this full phrase up to the rest in measure 4, the rest in measure 4. And I'll be clapping and counting. I'm going to give myself 6 beats in preparation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, rest. So essentially that took us up right to that 8th rest in measure 4. Now I'm going to play it. Again, same sort of idea. Still have my metronome on 76. For now, I took the ornamentation out, so I didn't play any of the little notes, notes in measure 3, so I left them all out. So if I'm going to write in my counting, which I would advise you to do, I usually use dashes when I'm illustrating longer notes, and then I don't use dashes when I'm illustrating moving notes. Measure 2, 1, the dot is beat 2. The 16th note is the and of 2, and then you have 4 eighth notes left. So that's your 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1-2-3 on the dotted quarter note because it's worth 3 full beats. The B flat, the B natural 8th note is beat 4, and then you have 5. The dot is on beat 6. And then the and is the 16th note. Next measure, 1-2, and then that note ends on beat 3. You do have some similar rhythms throughout this etude, and maybe a little bit later than this cut. This cut only is a portion of this particular work. The next section that I will share with you will be the second half, essentially, of measure 4, moving to the next printed breath mark. So I'm going to clap first. So I'm going to give myself 3 beats for nothing. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, and a 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, and a 3. And now I'll play it for you. 1, 2, 3. So that's that next section. I'll put in the counting for you. So the second half of measure 4, 8th notes, 4, 5, 6. And we talked about in the bottom portion of my instruction, the dotted 8th notes worth 1.5 beats. So the very, very beginning of measure 5, there's beat 1. The dot is beat 2. We've got 2 32nd notes and 3, 4, 5, 6. So it makes the most of the measure fairly easy. It's just really the first 2 beats that are a little bit more challenging. And then the same exact counting. Measure 6, dot is worth 2, second beat, and 3, 4, 5. And I'm just finishing out the measure so that we can prepare for what's coming up next. The next phrase is a bit more challenging. This particular phrase starts from pickups, high D natural, C natural, B natural, then move into measure 7. Measure 7 technically is one of the more challenging measures in this particular work, and then we move up until the middle of measure 8. I'm going to do these countings first. I'm also going to highlight that you have a chromatic what we call fragmentation, a chromatic fragmentation at the very beginning of measure 7. You want to make sure to put in an accidental, G sharp, most definitely, so that it's not forgotten. You also might want to remind yourself at the very, very end of the measure. I find that every once in a while there's a lot going on in this measure. We sometimes tend to forget that there's an F sharp still in the key signature. So that might be a good indication. So again, we talked about in the bottom portion of the music that 4 30-second notes were worth 1 full beat together. So now this counting would be 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3 E and A, 4 E and A, and then you want to pay special note to the last 4 notes in this measure. They're 16th notes. Sometimes people don't see that. Now you have 5 and 6 and. So it's almost like Ferling is slowing down by making notes just a little bit longer. So this is kind of a tricky area to clap out, but I'll do my best. This starts from the high D natural in measure 6.